Hi there, and thanks so much for joining me for another tutorial. I'm Erin Eno, and today we're keeping it simple with this quick and loose seascape. If you like this video and you want to see more beginner-friendly tutorials, please be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell so you know when I have new videos out. So let's just jump in and get started. So to start off, I'll just run through my materials for you. Today I'm using my Baohong Academy cold pressed watercolor paper. It's 100% cotton, 140 pound. I've trimmed it down to 5 by 7.5 and I've taped it to a board. You don't have to tape it to a board. I just like to in case I need to pick it up. It's easier. I have my Royal Talons Van Gogh paints. I have a jar of water and a paper towel, and I'm only using one brush today. I have a size 10 round in the Curry's 2500 series. You will also need, in addition to the paper towel, a facial tissue because we're going to be blotting up the paint to make the clouds, and sometimes I just find that the paper towel is a little too stiff. So the other day I was really struggling trying to get some florals. They just weren't working out, and rather than just give up on painting altogether, I decided to do a little seascape, and this is what I came up with. It's very simple. I'm going to try to replicate it today as best I can. I won't get it exact, of course, but someone had requested on Instagram that I do a tutorial, and I'm always looking for ideas, and this is really simple and fun to do, so I thought, perfect, I will do that. Okay, so I'm going to start with the water, and I'm going to take Viridian Green and mix that with some Ultramarine Deep, and you get a nice bluish green oceany color. Okay, and I'm just going to make a wash of that, not too intense. Actually, I'm going to push some of it off to the side, like so, and then I'll just mix a lighter wash up here, and I'm going to get most of that pigment off my brush. Okay, and I don't want a lot of water on my brush, and we're just going to kind of, I'm going to just turn my board a bit because it's easier. I'm just going to start with the edge of my brush, with the belly of my brush almost parallel to my paper, and I'm just going to like dry brush this turquoise ocean color on there. So you just keep dry brushing this on. Okay, so I'm just going in, getting a little bit of that paint, not too much, and just, you can hear how dry my brush is. Okay, and I'm just going to go, actually I can use a little more water, and I'm just going to keep dry brushing this until I get it the way I want. I'm going to go up a little higher actually. Okay, so it's just dry brushing with that wash of the watercolor, just like that. So I can see already it's different from the one I did the other day, but that's okay. Then I'm going to take a little more of that pigment and just paint a straight line across for the horizon, just like that. Then I'm going to add in some deeper areas of that watercolor. And I don't want to overwork it. Kind of screwed that up, but that's okay. There's going to be land there. Then for the water, I'm going to rinse off my brush And I'm going to get some cobalt blue and make a really light wash of that and add in a little bit of sepia just to kind of give it a grayish kind of color. That might be a little too much sepia. It's all good. And you only need a light wash of this as well. That's not blue enough. I'm going to put a little more cobalt blue in there. Okay, and I'm going to take most of the pigment off my brush again by just dipping it in my jar and dragging my brush across the lip of the jar. Then I'm going to put this color all in the background for the sky. Actually, maybe a little bit more sepia. And I'm not going to go back into the paint. I'm just going to keep adding water now. There's a little bit more paint down here. And I'm not going right to the water line. I don't want to reactivate that. A little bit in here. This is going to dry lighter as well. And then while it's still wet, this is where you're going to take your, whoops, you know what, I want to fade this out just a little bit. Have a little bit of a hard edge there. So while it's wet, you're going to take your tissue, I think I said paper towel, not paper towel, and you're going to bunch it up, and you're just going to tap and get some clouds in there. Now you won't be able to pick it up everywhere, but we will get some more color in there and those clouds will be a little more defined. So basically, even though I'm not picking up a lot of paint, I am picking up water. So we're going to go back to that blue and we're going to tap it in. And what's going to happen is it's going to go where there's water because we picked it up with the tissue. You can see that hard edge of that cloud, and that's what gives you that kind of cool effect for the clouds. Over here too. Okay, so if it's too dark, you can always go in and pick up some of that pigment with your brush if you want, but it is going to dry lighter, remember that. I am just going to tip my board and just get some of that. It's a little darker than I would like, but it's not a big deal. No two paintings are going to be exactly alike. And I'm just going to soften the bottom edge of that cloud. Probably get rid of this one altogether. And that's that. Then we're going to go in with the same brush, because I'm only using the one brush today. I'm going to soften this up a bit first. I'm going to go into straight sepia because we're keeping this simple. It's the simplest seascape probably that you'll ever do. And I'm going to just put a little landmass of kind of rocks over here. So I'm just going to paint a line right along the water line, just like that. Okay, whoop. And then I'm just going to give it some shape and different heights, and it's just going to be imperfect. Okay, just going to just tap in this sepia and not worry about it too much, because it's just going to be organic. Then I'm going to clean off my brush, tap it off on my paper towel, and I'm just going to pick some of that paint up just to give it some highlights and shadows. And while it's still wet, I'm going to clean and dry off my brush so it's just a little bit damp, and I'm just going to run my brush along the bottom of that landmass that we just created. And it's going to bleed down. Actually, it's not bleeding all that much. I'm going to add a little more sepia along that edge. There we go. And that's going to bleed down. Now, if you want to do a perfect reflection, not a perfect reflection, but a stronger reflection, you can actually just push that sepia down, tap it almost to, well, not almost, but tap it down to mimic the shape of that landmass that you put in. Okay, and that's going to dry a little lighter. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Put another landmass in. Nothing fussy, just some squiggles. We're not even putting trees in. You could if you want, but I'm just trying to keep this as simple as I can. And keep it nice and relaxing. And it's got no definite edge, this painting. It's just kind of, you know, a quick, loose kind of landscape. Seascape, sorry, it's not a landscape at all. So I'm going to clean and dry off my brush again, go back into here and pick up some of the pigment to give it some shape and different values. Then I'm going to wet my brush or clean my brush off again with a little bit of water on it. Actually, you know what? I'm going to have to put some more sepia right at the bottom. Okay. Then I'm going to go in with a damp brush and run it along the bottom here to get that bleed going. Okay, and again, just tap in some sepia to mimic the shape of the landmass. Comes up a little higher here. If you don't nail it, don't worry about it. Mine's definitely not perfect there. Okay, and then while that's drying, I'm going to go in with just straight black. And we're going to do a few birds. Now, my brush, even though it's a size 8, has quite a nice point on it. So if you want to switch to a smaller brush, by all means, switch to a smaller brush. And for the birds, I gotta be careful not to put my hand in the wet. I'm just holding my brush perpendicular just to make sure that I'm only using the tip of my brush. And you're just doing an arc and another arc. And put one up here. Make sure your sky is dry so your birds don't bleed and become a blotchy mess. 3. I'll do one like here. I did 4 before. I'm going to do 5. Put a little guy back here. And you know what? I may even just put one really in the distance back there. I'm just going to pick up some more of that sepia in the landmass there to keep those highlights. Then I'm going to go back into my straight sepia. So there's very little water. There's no water on my brush really. It's just straight pigment because I don't want this to bleed. And I'm just going to define that bottom edge. It is bleeding a bit. I was too impatient. No worries. I'm going to rinse and dry off my brush and just pick that up. Actually, that kind of worked out because now it looks like a little harsher shadow. And I may just go in with my sepia, a little watered down, because I've lost some shape up here. I'm just going to tap in. Don't have to fuss too much. And that's it. It's that easy. It's probably the simplest seascape you will ever paint. So there you go. There is your finished seascape. Pretty simple, and I think any beginner should be able to give this a try. If you do and you're on Instagram, don't forget to share and tag me so I can have a look. That's it for today. Thanks again so much for joining me, and I will see you next time.